Hello. I wanted to make sure to go over the Blackfish essay response. We don't get a lot of time to discuss essay writing, but it becomes such a huge factor in your grades in the next couple of years that I think that it's worth it to have at least a foundation and go over what works well in a research response so that you can continue to replicate those characteristics in your next couple of responses. So first, you should always master MLA formatting, and it will allow you to have the best possible presentation for a response. So that would be your last name and the page number. The options allows you to automatically add the page numbers right here for the header, and as soon as it's highlighted like that, it'll indicate to me that it was automatically page numbered instead of just typing in the number 1. You have the student's last name, and there's a space between the last name and the page number. The alignment is all the way to the right-hand side, and the last name and page number have a single space between them. Once that's done, I click out and we are formatting the document. Then this is all formatted correctly also, Times New Roman size 12. The line spacing up here has been set to double, and all of that formatting had been done prior to starting to type so that there's no disruption in the formatting of the paper altogether. We have the first and last name, the teacher's name, the course that we're in and that the assignment is coming from, and then of course the due date. The 8th of May, there's no punctuation in here, 2026. I have a title that's centered, and then once I started typing, I pulled the alignment all the way back to the left. You'll notice that the alignment button will change as soon as I place my cursor there. So once I brought it all the way down here, I hit indent and I started typing. So let's take a look if the question was whether or not SeaWorld should continue to breed whales in captivity. This was the response. The thesis statement should be highlighted in yellow, so just so that you're aware. Obviously, that wouldn't be the case when you're handing in your paper, but for our purposes and demo purposes, I have some things that are highlighted and bolded so that I can better show you some of the characteristics of a really good paper. So SeaWorld has long been a location to to see live orcas for entertainment, but may not realize the danger that they create for both the animals and trainers behind the scenes. SeaWorld is a family entertainment facility that offers audiences a chance to see whales in captivity, but they are not the only ones doing this. Natasha Daly of National Geographic and Hugo Martin of the LA Times each offer insight into the topic of breeding whales in captivity. What we've done so far is acclimate our audience to the topic. We've opened up with a hook. That hook should be about 2 sentences, and then we start to introduce our sources. This is a little different than what we did in the LAT, the literary analysis task, because here what we're doing is introducing 2 separate authors and 2 separate articles that are going to be included in our argument. With Knight, when we were doing a literary analysis task, we were only dealing with 1 source, so it's less of an item that you have to remember because it's obvious that you need to mention that we're talking about Knight when you're writing a paper about Knight. But when you are doing a research task, make sure that you are identifying what sources you're going to be discussing within that introduction. Now it's time to make sure that the audience knows what I'm going to be arguing, and I want to be clear about it. No, maybe, could be. I want to be direct in my wording. So orcas should not be bred in captivity, and then because of a limited range of motion in the pools, the artificial groups that they are put in, and the conditions of the pools. So these are going to be my 3 reasons. You'll notice as we continue on in the paper that those 3 reasons are illuminated throughout the body paragraphs. They should be showing up in that same organization. So because of the limited range of motion in the pools, that range of motion topic should be the topic for that first body paragraph. The artificial groups should be somewhat of the explanation of the topic for the second, and the conditions of the pools should be the last. If that's not the case, then the organization is a little off. We'll have a closing sentence here. All of these flaws in their captive environments contribute to the whale's behavior, meaning that whales should no longer be allowed to be bred in captivity. All right, so perfect introduction, that would score just fine. When it comes to the body paragraphs, you're following the exact same layout that we had covered in class, where you are making your claim, providing your evidence, giving me 2 sentences that prove that your evidence is helping to fulfill your topic or proving your claim from that first sentence, and then make sure that you have a closing sentence. That closing sentence is going to be your tie back to your thesis. So that last sentence should mention that they shouldn't be allowed to have whales in captivity. So let's see how well it does. While orcas are being held in captivity, their lives and growth are being stunted for the company's profit. In Natasha Daly's National Geographic article, it suggests, notice that I am using these verbs to offer what is about to happen. I've also used an embedded quote, which means that I've opened it up with my writing, and now I'm dropping into my quote with the in-text citation immediately following. This piece of evidence shows, and then when I come out, I'm using this type of language. Whenever you can vary this language, it's going to serve you better. So make sure that you're including it. And then you go into your lines of explanation, the difference between wild and captive whales and what their purpose is to have large spaces to swim and hunt for food. Keeping the intelligent killer whales and orcas in captivity is stripping them of their full potential, since orcas, being bred in the pools, not only takes away their freedom to get food by themselves, but it takes away their exercise, which hurts their health, resulting in shorter lifespans. SeaWorld cannot recreate the wild well enough for the whale, so they should not be allowed to breed whales in captivity. All right, so that last sentence connected back to the thesis. Those 2 sentences that immediately follow the quote are explaining how the quote proves that their lifespans are stunted, and it's all for a company profit. So those 2 sentences did their work. We follow that same pattern. You're going to see that same pattern replicated in the next paragraphs. The only thing that could potentially be an improvement on this would be as if you were going into your second paragraph and saying something along the lines of, and in continuation of this idea, or additionally, comma, SeaWorld's artificial family groups. That would allow the audience to see that you are continuing on in your idea and not just ending that idea altogether abruptly. You're carrying on the argument, just about to illuminate a different point. In creating your conclusion, you are trying to replicate or remind the audience of what you've just discussed. So, in conclusion should be there, but I just want to see a reiteration of your thesis and a reminder of the points that you covered, and you should be ready to go. And then hit submit. Congratulations, you did a great job.